welcome to another episode of Backwoods Brothers. I'm with my man
Tony.
and I am Joel, and we got a special guest, Brian. I'm gonna totally crush this. Echerer. What's that? It's Eckerer, right?
ECHERER.
Yeah, the extra ER kills me.
Echerer.
Yeah, I grew up with it. It is what it is.
Yeah, and so you're running for the Clackamas County chair.
Chair position, yes.
Clackamas County Republican Party chair.
Yes.
Yeah, make it that specific.
But one of the prerequisites to be on the show is that you have to have a sense of humor. Because we are a positive show, right? So we want to have, so would you tell us, for us, a joke? Okay? I'll tell you one first. Okay. While you think of one. J-Man, you ready for it?
I got to go right at the bat.
Okay, so viewers, make sure you tune in. We're glad you're here. Watch this.
So, once there was a president. His name was Joe Biden. See?
Dun-dun-dun.
Da-da.
Dun-dun-dun. Dun-dun-dun.
We also have this shithead right here.
Okay, ready? So everybody knows that I'm blind one eye, can't see out the other. And I'm going to ask you one of those. So why did Helen Keller burn her ear?
I do not know.
You don't know? Okay. She tried to answer the iron.
Yuck.
Yeah. Why did she burn her other ear?
She called back.
You got it!
Where's that fail sound?
Did you hear that?
Is there a fail sound out there somewhere?
No, I know. Look, you heard that, or are you just playing it off? Look. Oh, come on. Y'all liked it. What about yours? Brett?
How clean does it have to be? You guys are pretty...
Oh, you already said something about our poll, but okay, go ahead.
He's talking about the poll that holds all the stuff up.
Or the polls that you're going to vote at next week. Okay, there you go. Or this week. Okay.
Square root of 69. What's that?
Screw 69.
The square root of 69.
The square root of 69. Do you know that, J-Man?
It's math. It's hard.
I don't know. 2, 3, 4, 5, 7.
8 something.
8 something.
8 something. Oh.
Oh, wow.
How come he gets a laugh and I get a wah, 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 wah?
This is funny.
Anybody who knows me is gonna know that number, and I gotta squeak it in here. So they're all gonna go, oh no, he didn't do that.
Oh my word!
I did.
Wow.
So Brian, you are, like you said, running for the Clackamas County Republican chair. I'm hoping you're gonna tell a joke every time you win, if you win. And so you sent us some information about you, a little bit about kind of who your background was, and sent to all the PCPs. But why don't you tell us something that wasn't in the paper?
By the way, what is a PCP?
I don't even actually understand for
Precinct committee person.
Thank you.
Precinct committee
person.
Precinct committee person.
I should know that, especially because I am one.
You are one. That's what I think. All right.
And it's different everywhere. It's not always. They call it committee man and stuff like that. So it's probably changed over time. They moved that. So what did you want to know? You want to
So you talk a little
more about.
You said a little bit about your background, kind of, and most all the PCPs are going to be able to see that and know that what's in there.
A lot of them.
And we're going to talk a little bit about that in a little bit. But tell us something that's not in there. Give us some insight real quick.
Well, that was an introduction letter about kind of my history with Clackamas County and some of my work history. Just give people a background and a feel for me. But as things developed since 2016, when Trump ran and got elected, and from there it's just been a slide of me growing more conservative and learning more about conservatism and learning more about America because I believed in it. And so the more I learned, the more I went the other way than all my social circles that I was involved with.
You're kind of skimming through a little bit of what your letter tells the story of. Can you take us through that a little bit of your timeline?
Well, that letter is kind of like my basic history from when I was a kid.
I thought that was really neat.
So Clackamas County, I pretty much grew up here, and because I was a cyclist and an enthusiast, I rode my bike probably on every single road around this area. Between Lake Oswego, I'd ride all the way up to Government Camp.
So from where?
Lake Oswego.
Whoa, holy cow. That's like what? 40 miles?
Yeah. I mean, I've ridden across the state a couple times. I've done Cycle Oregon, did Seattle to Portland.
I drove across the state.
I was going to say, do we look like we cycle anywhere?
Yeah, well, I know nobody believes
Cycle
me.
and food.
I watched a
believes
video
me.
about it once.
Yes.
Nobody believes me. So I mean, it's just my home, and I love it here. And then, so as things were sliding, and I was growing in my conservatism, eventually it came to the point where we started learning about PCPs. You started hearing about. I heard a lot of the people that I listened to on the radio and stuff talk about PCPs and stuff, and I'm like, all right, that sounds like a good idea. I can join, right? We can join, be PCPs, get things figured. But really, it was, I need to find out what's going on and how the hell did we get here? Because I don't understand. I don't understand how we have these reoccurring choices of, one of my phrases I hate the most is, we're going to vote for the lesser of two evils. Because I've always said,
I've used it.
if you keep doing that, what do you get to vote for eventually? Just evil. You're only going to have evil as a choice. You keep voting it down and down and down. And I'm like, okay, I got to find out how we got here. And I'll join to be a PCP. So that's been about just under 2 years. In the spring, it will be 2 years. And so as I kind of watched and learned and was going to a lot of events and activities, some of them activist types. I was never a guy who would go out on a street corner with an American flag and wave it around. I'd be like, why would somebody be doing that? I was that guy. And now I love going to Berry Hill on a Friday night. I don't get to go to it as nearly as much as I want, and wave flags. Up, you know where that is? The Berry Hill flag wave. Every Friday, they do a flag wave where the Sherry's is on Berry Hill.
Where's Berry Hill at?
It's where the strip mall. So what is it?
Is it in Oregon City or?
Yeah, it's Oregon City. So it's Beaver
Okay, yeah,
Creek.
up top area.
Yeah, so there's the Sherry's right there. That big intersection where the new highway is.
Yeah, right by Beaver Creek and I know.
Yeah, Beaver Creek. Anyway, so every Friday they do a flag wave up there, and every Friday you can go up there and feel welcome, and anybody can be there. And it's just now I do that. And it's like not a big deal.
Wow.
So as things slid and I was going the other way, my social networks dissolved away.
I think this was a key story here. You put that in there, how you worked for an arts committee. How did that,
So,
and your art family, you said in
Yeah.
quotes. So tell us a little bit about that, because that really impacted me about the loss there.
Yeah, it was, it's kind of a big deal to me. So I did Saturday Market for 5 years. I don't think I talked about that, but Saturday Market's a gem in the Northwest. You just when it's gone, it's one of those things like, well, where'd it go? Because we all take it for granted. But having done that for 5 years, it appears and disappears every weekend.
Which one? Like
Portland Saturday Market.
The big one? Okay.
Yeah. And what a lot of people don't know is there's actually two markets there. The railroad tracks delineate the Skidmore market from the Saturday Market. The Saturday Market is a artisan represented market, meaning you have to make your stuff, sell your stuff. And it's a juried market, meaning they inspect your goods and make sure you're making them. And so I did that for 5 years. And then I was part of that organization in the product review committee, which is the jury that when you want to be in Saturday Market, you have to submit your stuff. And they say, prove that you make it. And so of a good standard and quality, and there's like a whole bunch of guidelines. And that's where I learned about Robert's Rules, which is how they ran their meetings. And the rules of parliamentary procedure. So interesting enough. So I ended up going on the road, doing art on the road up and down the West Coast, going to cycling events and art shows.
Art on the road. What did you do for art?
What I made was cycling themed art out of bike parts and stained glass.
Oh, nice.
And so I'd take the metal, weld it together, and then I would fill the holes of the gears with glass and a stained glass, the standard foil and solder technique. So it was real stained glass. That's how you do it. So I'd go all over, hawking those things, kind of like a bard, if you will, traipsing around the land and selling my stuff. It was a good time. And then I was part of Urban Art Network, which put on First Thursdays in the Pearl. And so I was with those guys for 10 years. And basically, we set up every First Thursday of Street venue throughout the spring and summer. And then
You said this was your art family.
it was one part of my art family. I ended up leaving them a little bit before the real things happened, before like the George Floyd stuff and
Got you.
BLM.
Yeah.
But because I was anchored in the gallery, and the gallery was really where I put my blood, sweat, and tears, and that was an anchor. And that gallery was run as a collective, very unique business model. So we had a board, and we would vote on things from time to time, and but it became very, very successful because we had to move from a location, and I was really one of the instigators to say, hey, we got to do this, we can do this. And I would get every excuse to say, we can't do this. Every excuse. That gallery, that space is too big. It's too expensive. Too many people. We don't have enough time. I mean, every excuse. And the group that worked to do it figured out every objection and had the answer. And we ended up doing it. And the short story is, the old location, the most we ever made in 1 month there, in years and years and years and years, $6,000 in 1 month, gross.
Huh.
Not a lot of money. The first month when we opened at the new place, we did almost 30,000 in the first month.
Wow.
And what that did was give 15 more artists, we had a total of 30, 15 more artists a place to show their work and sell their stuff.
You know
That's
what?
cool.
Let's put a pin in that one just real fast for a sponsor.
Yep. Hey guys, so we have some, speaking of art, we have someone that's a different kind of art. They do sign art, basically, where they make signs and people order them from them, you know.
That's right.
Hey, you know, sometimes you need a sign for your business, sometimes you need a sign for your running for, you know, your position. But we have some really good ones here. We have Whitney signs. Go and check them out. Awesome. Or not come on at all. That works too.
Oh no.
It's a really interesting commercial here.
Technical difficulties. You need that, like, boom.
Somebody.
That's awesome.
Hey, welcome back.
Yes, Britt just said that's awesome. Sean, you are awesome. And next week is your week, and we
Oh
cannot.
yeah, you're gonna crush
wait.
that election.
He's
Straight up.
going to crush that election for mayor.
By the way,
It's
real
gonna be
quick. Hey everybody. Hey Mike. Hey Brandon. Well, Brandon's already here, obviously. Hey Sherry. Hey Sapat. Hey Sarah. Good to see you guys. Welcome to the show.
And one more person. Chad, if you're here, hey, I told you I was going to display this hat, so thank you for the hat. Okay. Back to Britt.
That's awesome.
Okay, so you were talking before we left a little bit about this co-op you put together for the art stuff. But let's switch gears a little bit. Now, how can you translate some of that information that you've learned over the time into what you might do for the party?
Well, as time went on in this little election year to what we call reorganization, so you now elect the new leaderships that's going to represent the PCPs. And after learning about it for a couple of years, it started to come to me like I've kind of done this before. I've worked in the nonprofit industry, basically, in the arts, and it really flips over almost identically. It's really a nonprofit organization. I mean, we're not there making stuff and selling stuff. We're there to promote Republicans' values and Republican candidates, and help them get elected. And then sometimes we help recruit candidates and things of that nature. And then we also want to have our ear to the ground on measures and initiatives that are coming down the pike from Salem.
Like 104. If you saw my signs out front.
Oh yeah.
Did you say 114?
No, 114.
Yeah.
114.
Thank you.
That's okay.
That's a big.
That's okay.
That's a
104 too.
big
Oh, big no. Yep. I was
no.
actually pushing that months before anyone else started talking about it.
Yeah, well, and that's what's kind of, so that's one of the things that I thought was really cool about being in the party is you start hearing about this stuff before anybody else hears about it.
Mm-hmm.
So a lot of those functions in the nonprofit industry transfer over. So the biggest example is fundraising. Anytime you are in a nonprofit arts organization, the chair of the board, whoever runs it, the CEO, whatever they are, fundraising is always the top of the list.
Oh, yes.
Because you can't do much without the funds.
I think you're amongst familiar people who
Yeah.
run 501c3s. And
He's actually on the board of SOK Community Watch. I'm the emergency coordinator. Brandy's actually the president of the.
So you know,
And the
Community
founder.
Watch, and
how do you get the next dollar? You always got to be looking for the next dollar. That's not something we talk about a whole lot.
Speaking of which, you could be buying some C's candies and some pretzels from us before you go.
That could be a
ECW.
possibility. I got my wallet.
I still got my wallet. You know
Yeah,
what?
my
You're standing next to me. You never know. Okay. We are a humorous show.
I'm putting it in my front pocket.
Oh, well, I won't be going there. Sorry.
And it'll be safe.
It will be safe. Very safe. Undercover.
So does that make sense? That there's these things that transfer over? Is that
What's that?
the things
Oh,
transfer over from the nonprofit world into the nonprofit world of politics? But one of the things I realized.
Expound on that, yeah.
One of the things I realized is the arts world uses foundations, and those foundations, you go apply for a grant at the foundation, and they're like, okay, we like you guys, you filled out all the information, and we elected, and you get $1 million, and that changes your art organization like boom,
It does.
instantly.
Instantly.
So you go to these foundations, and you say, hey, we really need
I'm
this,
excited when we get like $1,000.
right?
Right?
Like, oh,
Add some zeros to that. We're doing
Well,
good.
that was the
Not
work
living
I
from
was
paycheck to
starting to
paycheck.
get into. Was like, okay, how do we do these? How do we fill out these things? You get a grant writer and
Oh,
stuff,
yes.
and all that stuff, right?
Oh, yeah.
So you learn about all that, and then as soon as I come over, I'm like, we call them PACs. They have all this money, and they use it for various political actions. So those are the kind of the same parallel organizations that you can obtain money from and whatnot. So that's just one example of what comes over, but really, it's a business. Even though you have that nonprofit component, it's still a business because you have to generate funds some way, somehow. And once you have that, you still have to click together your marketing, your marketing plan, your advertising, community outreach, all the things externally that will show the community that you're of value. And that's another thing we don't talk about a whole lot in the party. How do we show people in the community we're of value? Because then they want to join us. And that gives us more human resources, which are just as important as money, human resources. So you want to have the same in a nonprofit. You want to have retention of new people. So you want to bring them in, keep them happy, and retain them. So membership's a big part of that stuff too.
Yes, and as we were talking before the show started, usually it's free beer and lobster, right? That's how you get them coming and keeping them there, right?
If you can get a good sponsor.
Then it might be free. Name that.
I know a guy from Boston. I just met him. He might know some
Name the
lobster
author
guys.
of this quote, okay? Always put the mission before the man. Who coined that?
I think it might be about my dad.
That was your dad?
Might be my dad.
Well, you quoted it.
I know.
What
I'm
does that
joking. It's
mean?
got to come from my dad, though. That came from my dad.
Well, he
Well,
raised you right.
That's a great question. It is that's an amazing question because going back to the gallery work that I did, it was always about the members of the gallery. It wasn't about me. It wasn't about the fact that I helped get this all to work. I didn't like that because I knew all the people that helped make it happen. And even the tiniest little thing, one phone call changed that whole scenario. And I had asked this person, can you make this phone call? They made that phone call. And that changed. We got a pro bono lawyer from that phone call.
Wow.
And but without that happening, none of that could have happened. And so what I realized is the value of people is so much more important than the value of me, because they're the ones who make things happen. And it doesn't have to be me. All I kind of have to do is suggest or guide and move things in a certain direction. But it's really the people that make it happen. So you have to have a vision. You have to have a mission.
Vision.
A mission.
A mission and a vision. A vision and a mission.
Hey, I've had a few missions sometimes.
And,
Did you flush them down?
No, so that's
flushed them down.
That's when you're working your butt so hard that everything kind of gets fuzzy. It becomes a mission instead of a mission.
when you're pushing
Got
too
it.
hard?
When you
really,
push
You're
too
pushing too hard.
Yeah.
You got it. No, I mean when you're working. You're
Sure.
pushing too hard. When you're working.
Okay.
Anyways.
That's what I meant.
Yes. So putting the mission. Let me see if I can quote it right again. Always put the mission before the man.
Always. You have to be focused on that. You got to be focused on that.
Well, and then you go on to say the mission comes before the ego.
Yeah, and okay, so I had a great experience in a nonprofit that I was in, and we gave free money to people, some cyclists who got hurt. All they had to do is be riding a bike, and you got money. And they were having a hard time finding people because nobody knew about this charity, but we had money to give to somebody. So somebody got hurt that we found out about, and we approached them and said, hey, do you want this money? And they're like, who are you? Oh, well, we're this nonprofit, and we have this money. All you got to do is sign this paper for government stuff that we gave you this money. And they're like, no, thanks. We don't want the money. And we were sitting in the board meeting, and the people were like, did you explain it to them? Well, yeah. Maybe you didn't explain it right. What do you mean they didn't want the money? How dare these people not take our money? And then it just hit me like, holy cow, these people aren't in this for the charity. They're in it to feel good. They want to feel good. And these people not taking the money was offensive to them. And I'm like, whoa, that's not what this is about.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And it just hit me like, wow, look at that. You're there for the charity. The mission is the charity, and you put that first before your ego.
Wow.
And so I was like, I could compartmentalize. After seeing that, I could compartmentalize my ego. We all have it, and I certainly do. I'm not going to deny that. But I can compartmentalize that because really the satisfaction for me is to see the completion of a group come together. And that mission, that's the satisfaction for me. And so all these examples in nonprofit is what I want to bring to the CCRP.
Gotcha.
And build this the way that I've seen success happen. And I believe I can bring that to the CCRP.
And for those of you that are just joining us, it's Brent from the...
Brian. Brian.
Why did I say Brent? I want you to be Brent so
It
bad.
happens.
Brian.
I get named all kinds of different names.
Well, you know what, Brian? I'm going to say it 5 times, Brian.
that's
right.
So this is
That's right.
No,
Brian.
he's B-Dog. No.
B-Dog is from the Clackamas
Clackamas County
County
Republican
Party.
Running for the chair.
A proud Republican now.
Yes.
Proud.
And so you want to bring your knowledge base to this particular party, and you want to see it implemented. How?
Ooh, that's good. So, when I did this in the past, basically I charted out using a system called MOST, and then a friend of mine in the party said use VMOST, and basically it's vision, mission, objectives, tactics. There's one more I forget, but I have it written.
You must say that's
Well, at least it's not Brent. It's
Yes.
Brian.
Anyways, so I have it charted out. It's kind of like a pyramid. So you start at the top with your mission and vision,
Yes.
which are two separate things.
Uh-huh.
And basically, in my view, what the vision is what you want it to be. The vision is that, right? You vision where you want to go, what you want to do, and stuff. The mission is actually the car you get in to drive
You
you
get there. Yep.
Yeah, and then you figure out your objectives, which are kind of the more broader things, and then you figure out your strategy and your tactics. So S is strategy.
Strategies.
Yeah. So and it just all dials it down to the micro level, and so basically I've done a lot of that preparing for that, so I could actually present a solid plan there.
Nice. Nice. You know what our mission is right now? To share with you another sponsor, and it is Hitch and Post Pizza in Estacada, Oregon, head up by Valerie. We love you. It's a family-first, friendly place to be to eat pizza. Watch this. Just give me a chance one more time to redeem myself. This is Brian.
B-Dog.
B-Dog.
Anyway,
I don't know, B-Dog.
Yes, we're glad to have you with us.
we're just talking a little bit about your mission and kind of what you're kind of going through as far as, some things you might want to implement. But I was reading through the letter you sent, and I had some questions I wanted to bring up here. And you're talking about, and one of the big things about people's really concerns are these days is how people in leadership that are kind of bending to the will of peer pressure, cancel culture, all that crap. And so you made a quote somewhere in here that says, "I'd rather live alone than bend to the woke mobs." Can you expound on that?
Have you not ever felt that?
Oh yeah, totally, 110%.
So it's
So just your chance to get
Why are you going to me?
Lil, have you ever felt that? Like
I felt that.
Man, I go live in the woods and to continue on with this
I felt that.
and that kind of thing.
I was thinking more like an island somewhere.
I was talking to a PCP today by happenstance, and he brought up something that was so profound to me because I have a whole thing. Maybe we'll get into it. But he said, "Stop calling people leaders, please. Will you stop?" And I'm like, what do you mean? He goes, "They're representatives. And we keep calling them leaders, and that's not what they are. They're supposed to be representing us." So when you...
John Maxwell will disagree with you on that. If you've ever read John Maxwell.
Well,
But no, but true.
Well, see, that's the kind of thing we like to talk about. That's what I love stuff. I like to learn that stuff.
Ooh.
Love that stuff.
Gotcha. Yeah.
But so he kept saying, I kept saying leaders throughout the conversation. He goes, "Will you stop? What are you doing?" And I'm like, well, look, that's exactly what I probably the biggest thing in this little arc of running to be CCRP chair is realization of how do we pick leaders? How are we picking leaders? Now I work for Mark Thielman campaign. I'm working on the Bedell campaign. I chose those people for very specific reasons, like we all do. But I chose it on when I asked Mark Thielman, "What is liberty?" And he could explain it to me. I asked every politician I met, "What is liberty?" Mark Thielman could explain it to me. Most of the others could not. So how are you going to pick a leader to lead free people who can't explain liberty to you?
Come on.
I mean, they're going to go lead us, represent us, and they can't extrapolate or articulate, "Oh, here's what liberty is." At least to me, or there's multiple definitions. There's the textbook definition, but the
Or I have the liberty to.
well, you ready? Here it comes. Here comes my liberty stuff.
Got that censorship button ready?
Yeah, it's good. It's
We
clean.
don't want
I'm
Facebook
sorry.
to blow up here.
It's clean. It's clean.
Keep it clean. You have the liberty to do that.
We're not on the radio. We're on the internet. We don't have to be.
You have.
Did you just say? Did you say we're on the radio?
So we're not on the radio.
I was gonna say, who does radio anymore? Okay, go ahead.
A lot of people do the radio. Have you heard of Lars Larson?
I
You know
heard
what?
that guy.
We met that guy, but that's. Go ahead.
I met him for the first time this year.
You
I met
did?
him for the first time, yeah. I was so excited. I mean, listened to this guy for years, and there he is, standing there. It's like very cool. Okay, so liberty. This is the big deal for me, and everybody who knows me is going to be like, "Oh boy, here he goes." Liberty is the intersection of freedom and morality. I think we have a freedom problem in the country. I think we have so much damn freedom we don't know what to do with it. Right across the street from where I live, hanging in the window, is a Progress Pride flag in elementary school. Right in the front window, everybody sees it. That's freedom. You can pick your gender. be whatever you want. You can be whatever you want. You can be a cat. You can be a frog. And we got to respect that now. That's freedom. That is some serious freedom, man.
So, that's the thing where I think you're wrong there. We don't have to respect that.
Oh, just wait. I got more for you. I got more for you.
Okay.
So what I say is we have a freedom problem because that's what everybody's clamoring for. I want my freedom. Don't you take my freedom. It's liberty. Because what liberty really is, the intersection of freedom with morality, there's a limiting factor that's bigger than self on your freedom. The reason we have law is so you can be free. It's not to restrain you. It's to restrain those that would trespass against you.
Mm-hmm. That's what the Constitution is all about.
Exactly. It's so that you can get your land, build your stuff, and somebody can't drive up and just take it from you because you got laws.
Well,
that leaves you
I'm gonna
free
say the
to
word.
be prosperous.
Damn, why didn't we start here first? But
Well,
anyways,
here's the thing: is people
Mm-hmm.
misunderstand what the Constitution is about. The Constitution is not there to grant you your freedoms and tell you what you can do.
Bingo.
It's there to limit the government and
Bingo.
protect the freedoms that you have, because it says in there under the 14th Amendment that basically all power is not named in this Constitution belong to the people. So that
Bingo.
Constitution is simply there to identify some core ones and to stop the government from infringing on those, but it's to close in the government from basically give them walls and give them limits.
That's right.
So that they don't infringe on the people.
And it's really hard even for me to get my head around it to this day, that kind of concept that I have a sovereignty, that I have a liberty, and it can't be taken from you.
Oh yeah, so it's any God-given right.
It belongs to you.
It can, it's your right, but it can be taken from you if it's not protected. Be clear about that one.
Things can be taken, but you will always be a free mind if you want to be a free mind.
Well, yeah, you can be a free mind, but the thing is, people don't understand about liberty and about freedom. Exactly, it comes with a price, and you have to be willing to pay that price, and that price is to protect those freedoms. And if you aren't willing to pay that price,
this guy,
you're going to lay down those freedoms as the cost. There's always a cost.
The price of liberty is vigilance. To always remain vigilant to protect that.
Yep, exactly. And that's why you send men to war, to keep that price being paid, not in your backyard, but somewhere else.
And we've lived so good for so long, and they've removed... Okay, so now I'll go one step further. Liberty is the intersection of freedom and morality. Morality, that's the one everybody wants to argue about. Well, that's subjective and this and that. I'm like, well, hang on a second. You can substitute that word for standards, freedom plus standards, freedom plus ethics, freedom plus godliness. I mean, put whatever word in there you want. Again, it's a limiting factor on oneself to not just go run around and act like an animal, right? That you have a responsibility to your community, to your family, to your neighbors. And not just your liberty, you got to protect their liberty. So you're all in a partnership now to this, to be vigilant for this. And we don't teach this. We don't talk about this. So when you're picking leaders, we're picking them on these issues. Well, where do you stand on this? Well, I can't vote for you then. Like, why don't you ask them, go back to the basics? Again, they're representatives, not leaders.
I think it's an important thing, too, when you're looking at a candidate and looking at who to vote for. Anybody, especially during election time, can say anything they want. Words are absolutely meaningless when it comes down to what matters is the actions, because you can't cover up historical actions. You can't cover up the actions. Someone can be a person for a season, but in the end, who they really are always shines through.
100%. And so a great question to ask a politician is, what are you going to do to improve my personal liberty or my community's personal liberty?
Or at least protect it at the minimum.
Yeah, so what's your plans to help make us more prosperous and early? Because quite honestly, it all starts at liberty. And there's a bedrock of liberty, which is self-determination and freedom of conscience. Those three concepts would set this country on fire.
You said self-determination and freedom of conscience.
Freedom of conscience.
Of conscience. But no, what's the other third one?
A liberty.
Liberty. Okay.
But they sit on top of the bedrock of self-determination. And that's why I brought the self-determination, autonomy, competence, and connection. So self-determination allows you to take action that's meaningful. That's autonomy. Autonomy will allow you, you feel good. Like, hey, I'm going to do this, I'm going to fix that, and boom, you feel good. It builds a person up to have autonomy, right? You get a little freedom, you get like, and you're contributing though, you're contributing. Competence then allows you to have mastery of skills and tasks and stuff. So again, you're contributing to the community, you're feeling good, you're able to do things for yourself on your own determination. But really, I think the biggest one that killed us here during the shutdowns is connection.
Mm-hmm.
Because you got to feel connected to your community. Hey, that guy's competent. Hey, that guy will get it done.
Let me be clear. Facebook, YouTube, and all the other social media out there is not connection.
Ooh.
That's a false connection.
Bingo.
Connection is a face-to-face connection because what did they say? Something like 90% of communication is done through body language.
Yep, it's not it's visual.
It's visual, also vocal inflection, things like that, the way you can hear things.
Yeah.
Because you can say the same sentence with a different vocal inflection and have a completely different meaning.
And have a different look on your face.
Exactly.
Exactly.
And so
sarcasm does not translate through text very well.
I live that every day. That visual piece is so important.
Yeah,
exactly. And so...
Well, and hearing it, too, has got to be, too, the influx of voice. And
exactly. So all that comes together in communication. 1% is the words. So you're like, hey, man, you're an asshole. And that's maybe like, then if you actually get upset with anger and the rest of the audience, it's a much different approach. This way is joking, obviously, versus if I'm, versus the other way, if I'm like, Tony, you're an asshole, or whatever,
How do you reconcile, maybe we're overthinking this because I've been known to overthink, but how do you have autonomy with connection? They seem almost fighting concepts.
Well, they need to experience a sense of belonging and attachment to other people. And so what it is again, the autonomy and the competence gives you value to the community. And the community responds to that. So again, you have that. We're social beings, whether you feel like you're not or whatnot. I mean, no man's an island in that way.
Exactly, social being to a degree. Sometimes a person might have their close social network that they work with, but there's still some sort of human interaction. You may not. There's some people that are social butterflies that want everywhere all the time, and those people that have their close circles. And then there's also seasons in people's lives when they do that. So you would know better than most people, Tony. But
the social butterfly part, definitely.
No, I was going to say about people's mental state.
Yes,
you know something about that, I'm sure.
Just a little.
But like they say, for example, you can only have 10 close relationships, and then you start to bring out from there into less meaningful relationships out to. Yeah, I know the name, or I've seen the name. But
what I would say to that though is that those relationships change over time. So you could have 10 at one time of good relationships, but there's also a rotation in that too.
Exactly.
So there's another orbit there that you have to consider.
Because people come into your life for a season and then leave, and so on. It happens all the time.
Yeah. Oh, so I wanted to get to again that liberty equation. I call it the liberty equation.
Yeah.
Freedom, intersection of freedom and morality, but people want to argue about morality then. And I said, you could use a different term. That's fine. It's just creating a standard. Natural law is another good one. But morality then breaks down to two components. Morality, where do you get that from? And that's from knowledge and virtue. Makes morality. So when you have the knowledge of like, hey, if I kill people, it's probably not going to be a good thing because it's going to come back on me. On one side of the fence, if there's no law, I guarantee you somebody's going to come looking for you if you kill a family member or something, right? So we've learned through knowledge, it's a virtue not to kill people. This is a silly example.
But an example of that is...
You can take that all the way back to biblical times. It's been a very deeper knowledge.
Right. Mm-hmm. But there's lots of other simple things. Like, I love to go back to the Old West because you got cattle rustlers and you steal cattle. What happens to those guys, right? They come for you.
They disappear.
Horse thief. Oh my gosh, steal somebody's horse and that's all they got.
Shallow grave somewhere.
Yeah, that's right. So those concepts are building the foundation of what our founding fathers' principles built this thing, and we have lost that in a large degree because we're living good.
I think there's a balance when it comes down to, you talk about law. I think there's a balance of, yeah, you learn certain things, it makes sense to put laws in there, but I think sometimes there's also the imbalance that comes in where they make law just to make law. I mean, if you go look at the legal dictionary up in the Washington, what's it called, the big library there?
Oh,
the National Archive. Yeah, with all the law books. You could sit there and read that for the entire lifetime and not read them all.
Right.
But,
Yeah.
I mean, that's where the imbalance is. They have laws
Absolutely.
in the books
They want to put 3,000 bills through the Oregon legislature. 3,000.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Is
What do you need 3,000? What's going on?
People think in order to make an impact that they make a law. So and sometimes an impact can be taken away from those laws, and that's the thing that really what we need to do in our country is bring that back into balance. There's laws out there that need to go away. There's social programs that need to go away. There's laws out there that need to go away.
Okay, so this is where I go with, again, I'll go back to liberty, because if we
Yeah,
start
2
preaching
minutes
that
before we do.
and teaching that, and a lot of those things will take care of themselves. And we know we're picking representatives that are based in liberty, based in understanding liberty and your self-determination, freedom of conscience, that you have a sovereign part in this. And if they've been pushing and pushing and pushing it, right? History knows what's going to happen. You keep pushing and taking people's right to live away, they aren't going to put up with it.
Exactly. I mean, it's not just our own country's history, but it's every country's history. There, you push people far
That's what I'm
enough.
saying. Every country history.
Yeah, they're gonna bring it back into balance.
Yeah.
Well, and the most inconvenient governing document ever made in mankind in the history of the world, in the history of history, is that Constitution. Because it literally says, you're not in charge, we're in charge. It says it right there. What politician wants that?
We the people.
They want to
Right
go
at the
around
beginning.
it. They started going around it from day one. They were like, how do we get around this? So more laws, more laws, more laws. So what I feel is, if we can start bringing back people to the basics, they're not leaders, they're representatives. What's liberty? What are you going to do to help me prosper in my personal life? These basic questions, you go back to the basics. And once you start getting representatives that are based in liberty and some of these foundational principles, all that other stuff's going to take care of itself. You mark my words, laws will start coming off the books.
Completely agree. Well, we're at the end of our time. Why don't you give a quick idea where people can find some information about you real quick, and then we got to go.
You bet. LibertyZealot.com would be my domain.
LibertyZealot.com. It is so nice having you
guys are awesome.
back. I mean, that second half just took off. I tell you what. Guys, don't forget to vote because next week we find a lot out about who's going to be not leading, representing us.
Boom.
Okay? All
Yeah.
right.
Red wave.
We're fixing it already.
Don't forget to vote. Your vote really does matter. Really does matter. So.
Yeah.
All right, thanks, guys. Thank you so much for joining us. Stick around here in about 15 minutes. We'll be starting with Ranger Games, a veteran show by veterans for veterans. And if not, we'll see you next time, next Wednesday at 7 p.m. And tomorrow is Campfire Discussions with Brandy. Thanks again, guys. Have a good week.
Everybody.
Thanks, you guys.